Hey guys, Chris Cookin' Nashville here. It's health vlog time, and this is the conclusion of week 3 on Carnivore for the lovely Ash Taylor. I know she has some thoughts about it because things are a-changin'. All right, so here we are, end of week 3. As far as my health goes, I'm feeling totally fine. I actually feel like I have a lot of energy this week. Even not getting all the sleep that I would have wanted to last night, I felt pretty good today. When your brain is functioning and your body feels good, it's easy to do all those things that you need to do. As these health vlogs are, this one is about Miss Ash and her experience with Carnivore, specifically on week number 3. So I'm sure she has plenty of things that she would like to tell you guys and that she would like to talk about. So I'm just going to shut my mouth and let my beautiful wife speak. So tell us all about week 3, my love.
Week 3? You don't have to shut your mouth. You can talk with me.
All of the women out there were like, no, don't.
Don't do it.
Don't waste this opportunity. Keep him quiet.
What was that story you always tell about? It's like that old man in your church back home.
There was a guy in the church that I grew up going to when I was like in like high school. The church my parents go to. This was back when I was like 14 years old or something. And it was like their 50th or their 60th wedding anniversary, something, him and his wife, something like that. They'd been together forever. A sweet old couple. And the pastor from the pulpit said something about it being their anniversary, and he asked them the question like, you guys have been together so long, and he looked at the husband and he said, what's the secret to such a long and happy marriage? Without skipping the beat, the husband went, keep your mouth shut. And his wife is sitting there like elbowing him like, stop it. The whole church was cutting up. It was great. So guys, I love all of you, but listen, she's probably right. So maybe just keep your mouth shut. It's probably the best thing you can do.
I feel like you should talk, though, with some of this. You can open your mouth a little bit. Okay. How's that? Fair. Carnivore. Week 3. To start out with some positive things that I've kind of noticed. I will say that like all of the same issues are still there from last week, week 2. We kind of talked about like bathroom stuff, skin issues, pimples, and things like that, headaches, joint pain. All of that was definitely still in week 3.
Okay.
Body clearly still detoxing and all that, but I will say it was a lot more mild this week than last week. So that was kind of a good thing. So I feel like if you're wanting to try it, I would say if you can get through the first like week or 2, that's going to be the toughest time. Week 3 was a little bit easier. I also feel like week 3 is kind of the week where maybe I actually started to notice a difference in a couple of different things for the first time. One would be my nails and things like eyelashes, hair, like growing. Being a guitar player, I can't really have like long fingernails. It just gets in the way when you're trying to play guitar. I probably about like once a month would trim back my nails and, not think twice about it. And being on Carnivore for a couple weeks, I have had to the past 2 weeks trim my nails once a week. So, and they're also, I've noticed like thicker when I go to cut them. So I've definitely noticed things like that, which for us ladies, like, hair, skin, nails, like that's pretty great. I also would say
all the guys that like back scratches from their wives, they like those nails too.
Yeah. Many uses. I will say something else that, which you were kind of talking about, which I've not only noticed in myself, but also in you. I would say for the first time, I've really gotten the mental, just the clearness and the energy. Yeah. I feel like you and I have had a crazy, very, very busy week. And we have accomplished, though, like so much. Yeah. And the whole time, I felt like you and I were like, sometimes when you have a lot going on or a lot to do, you can be very easily overwhelmed. And I felt like we both were very, very calm. I thought we handled everything really, really well.
Right.
So it didn't seem stressful. I also felt like, especially things like music stuff, I felt like we both performed really well. I felt like we just had clear visions of what we wanted. It was a good time. It was clear. Lots of energy just to do all the different things that we were doing. Yeah. I noticed you in the kitchen. I've never seen you do so many experiments. Honestly, it's insane. I can tell like your brain is working in creative ways, and then mine as well.
Ideas.
Yeah, like all the ideas are coming to you, and you have so much strength and so much energy, and you're able to just go from one task to the other. And even when I'm ready to lay down in bed for the night and call it a night, I'm not just out within 20 seconds. So I really noticed that this week, especially with how busy we've been. And I was like, wow, I'm like, this is a great benefit. So those are definitely kind of the pluses. I will say I do understand why it is recommended that you would do this for 90 days. And we've talked about it before, but I'm just truthfully like not able to do it cleanly for 90 days on a carnivore diet. Which
Not
is
right now, at least.
Not right now, which is why we said 30. And the reason for that is like, again, we're here to be honest and transparent. We're musicians, that's what we do. So we have a lot of like shows coming up where we're traveling and we're doing different things. And not like we're gonna go off the rails and hug wild, but there's a thing called catering, and it's like you show up to a show and they feed you, and that is kind of part of your thing.
Yeah.
And we could definitely very easily do keto.
Yeah, keto is very easy to do on the road.
Keto is very, very easy to do, but to do carnivore, no. That's just kind of why we were like, hey.
I mean, we could do carnivore on the road. We'd spend about $300 a day probably buying steaks at restaurants and then throwing away all the sides because it would just be so difficult to do it consistently. I mean, we do things like that when we can.
Yeah.
You know, but there's just certain situations that you're in. It is very difficult to just have no veggie content of any kind.
Yeah, it's very hard. Well, and we try to keep it as clean and well, but I think our point in saying all this is like, we don't have our own big tour bus that pulls up, and we don't have a personal chef cooking for us.
Right.
So we though, like, you know, a lot of venues in different places provide food, and then when they don't, we have to do our own. So we do bring as much as we can, and we try to do the best we can. But if we were to do a 90-day challenge, and us knowing that shows and opportunities like that where it's like, hey, this is how we pay our bills, we need to go do this, and then me having a meal that would not be, you know, carnivore, well, that wouldn't be right to you guys. So
right.
But with that being said, you know, just like I have one more week left in the month of April, I do feel so much better. And this week I kind of see, I felt like this week is where I'm starting to see so many health benefits of being on a carnivore diet. It's interesting because I saw them with you when you did carnivore for the first time. And then when you did your 365, I really saw it. And even now, I mean, you are just like, this man has like so much willpower. It's just insane to have no cheat meals or nothing that long. I'm just like, oh, I love you, but I hate you sometimes, because that's really impressive. But you know, I've seen it just how it's affected you in your own life. And then when you did start to have a little bit of like keto stuff here and there, and now like you going back to carnivore, I'm even noticing a difference in you. So
yeah, I think when I go off carnivore and I have, you know, some keto stuff here and there, like it doesn't seem like it really has any effect.
Yeah.
And then like 3 days in, 5 days in, a week in, 2 weeks in, 4 weeks in, whatever it is, I'm just not functioning optimally.
Yeah.
But how I got there is not very clear. It's very subtle, and it builds up slowly, and then suddenly I just realize every day I'm just kind of dragging.
Yeah.
And the only thing that's been different is I've had a few keto meals over the last, 3 or 4 weeks.
Right.
And then I go back to like what we're doing now. There is no keto meal because she's not even doing keto. So it's not even like I'm having a bite of the veggies I'm making for her to taste them or something.
Right.
Like none of that is happening. It is just the spices that I use, which I know for me don't bother me because I've, done that 90-day elimination thing in the past. That's pretty much all I'm having outside of just standard, carnivore meat and eggs and some dairy. In fact, we actually took pictures of everything that Ash was eating this week, and what I'll do is I'll go ahead and now I'll just scroll these across the screen of this health vlog so you guys can kind of see the different meals that she had. But most of this is just meat. It's meat, it's salt, it's maybe some pepper, a few spices, that kind of thing. The most exciting out there thing would have been buffalo chicken wings that I made, and that has a little bit of buffalo sauce with my butter mayo, and that's how I make those. So really, for the most part, I'm cutting back all of the little keto things that it would just be a bite here or there, or maybe I would go ahead and have a small salad one night when I made salad for you, or those kinds of things that would happen occasionally. I've even cut that out. And there's just something about stepping back away from those veggies that just lets me function at my absolute most optimum brain power level and just physical energy level. And even if I have the occasional keto thing, it doesn't seem to be a big deal, but I have to intentionally go right back to carnivore, and it has to be extended periods of time, because if I have too many keto things,
right,
it starts to catch up to me and we don't even know it's happening until suddenly I realize I'm just not functioning as well.
right.
I'm just not thinking clearly. I'm not as energized by things. I'm struggling a little bit.
Well, that's I think a big thing though to point out is I think so many people focus on the weight loss aspect, which of course is great, especially if you're trying to lose weight, and that's great, that's awesome. But it's also like this whole mental side of things where it's like you don't have anxiety, you don't have depression, you're able to think clearly, you're more present in the moment, you're performing better at work or task, or you're better at interacting with people or your kids or whatever it may be. I think that's the big benefit that I've started to see this week that I was really vibing with. I was like, this is awesome. But
absolutely.
But yeah, I think Chris and I have kind of talked about it. It is very important when we know that we're going to be really, really busy doing a bunch of stuff and just kind of continuing on. I think basically we're just going to try to stay as close to carnivore at all times as possible. And then if we decide to have something keto from time to time, cool. For me, it's going to be a slow introduction thing where it's like I'll finish my month on carnivore and then, I'll try broccoli. And just that's my one little thing for the week. And if I try it and I'm good. And if not, then I know not to eat that. So now I feel like we're going to start being scientists and kind of experimenting. But I do think, though, that is something that if you are struggling with like brain fog or low energy and all that, you may not feel very good for a couple of weeks while your body is adjusting and detoxing on carnivore. But man, I'm telling you, it's like I think we were talking about this weekend. I think you and I accomplished more than what the average person probably accomplishes in like 2 weeks. Like,
it sure felt like it.
Oh man, we were, but we did all of that and we were like, weren't at each other's throats. We were totally fine. No one's upset. It was like, I felt like we could focus on things and get stuff done. And it was just very like, it was relaxed and yet massively productive. And it's like, wow, like we were both thinking clearly. We were both in the right headspace and good things happened. Creativity was flowing. You had all these great recipe ideas and you were experimenting and editing videos, and we were in the studio and like it was all great. So I think just going forward, we're going to try to stick as close to carnivore as possible, just going forward. And then when we do have a keto or a ketovore thing, just try to make it rare. And if we're touring and not in control of what we're being fed, simply just do the best that we can. So that's
stay as keto or carnivore as you can on those particular occasions, and go back to doing keto, carnivore, whatever until we get back home, and then go back to being carnivore. And try to stay that way as much as possible, I think.
I think that's our plan going forward. In week 3, as far as weight loss, the week 1 and week 2, I lost 4 pounds each of those weeks. So that was a total of 8 pounds. This week, I only lost 2 pounds, but
I know there's a bunch of people out there right now that are like, what do you mean you only lost 2 pounds? I haven't lost weight for like 4 months.
Sorry. Well, I didn't lose weight for a long time.
Right.
And then I gained some. And so to lose 10 pounds, though, in like 3 weeks is really, really, really good. Just to be honest, though, I think weight is one thing. And I had a little extra weight to lose, so it's good to get that off. I'm really, really, though, still on the whole energy and mental clarity and all of that. And it's like, 2 pounds, though, compared to when you lost 4 the past 2 is nothing. But like I said, though, I still have all the same, can we call them detoxing symptoms, like the bathroom issues and this and that. They're just more mild now. So I don't think my body is running off as much, but it is still running stuff off. That's why I'm kind of like, hey, I'm going to try to stick to closest carnivore as possible moving forward. And the other thing, too, is, people ask, like what we eat. I have a new appreciation for Chris's recipes. When we film, usually about once a week or so, it is nice to have something that is not just a steak or just a meat patty, but yet have something that is different, that is still carnivore, and it's tasty and it's different. And I think it really helps you honestly stay on track. I really do have a new appreciation for what you do and for your recipes. We were talking about it, though, too, as far as like if you are super busy, what we've been eating, like as people see it, as you let it run across the screen, it's literally like bacon. My body has just been craving bacon, and I've just been eating like, I probably go through a pack every day or two.
I get the family size packs of bacon, and she goes through a family size, not me included,
just me.
By herself, she goes through a family size pack of bacon every 2 days.
And you know what? is great. It's good. I've been eating like, a lot of bacon, meat patties and steaks and chicken and deviled eggs and scrambled eggs. And I mean, that we're eating just very basic, simple stuff though.
Right.
But I told Chris, I said, what I'm really realizing is, one, it's pretty quick to make those foods. You also can make a lot of that stuff ahead and then just have it. And
I just keep an entire pack of bacon cooked in the refrigerator at all times for her.
And he makes like deviled eggs like ahead of time, and he puts them in a container in the fridge. And so it was like, the other day we got up to go to the studio, and I was able just to heat up some bacon and literally just ate it. And it's like I ate it while walking around. I can eat it while walking the dog. But like when your schedule is so busy, I feel like that can be very easy to give yourself the, oh, I'm really busy, I'll just swing through this drive-through. You can't, you have to set yourself up to succeed. And so that's one thing that we've done, where it's like we've prepped food, put it in the fridge, and a lot of what we are eating throughout the week is very simple, minus maybe like when we do one of your recipe videos.
And this is also a good example. She hates baked egg type things, so she does not eat that stuff. But if you, not like her, enjoy that kind of stuff, like those Starbucks egg bites knockoffs, that recipe that I made, those things are better reheated than they are fresh, personally, I think.
You ate those all the time when you first started Carnivore.
When I first started doing this, I would just do them. You should link that
down below.
Yeah, I'll link it down below, but I used to do them as like a large quiche kind of a thing, and then I adapted that recipe to make the Starbucks egg bite style version, but it's done in a muffin tin in the oven. I used to eat those, take them with me to work, that kind of stuff. But I mean, you can have those just ready to go in the fridge. I mean, you make them once a week and you just have them ready to go, and it's an easy grab and go breakfast kind of a thing. And so there's, a lot of stuff like that with carnivore type foods, even that one being more of a recipe. There's so many things like that you can do, have it just ready to go, and it's just easy to grab.
That's one of the things though that I think, like we were talking about, I think that's why that seems to be working really well, is because we are really busy, but because the way we're eating is fairly simple, or you're making stuff ahead, I'm noticing it's like, well, this is great because right now we're crazy busy and I don't need to be more stressed out than I already am. It's like, don't make life more difficult. And I know people get busy and just life in general is crazy, but it's like, man, having things like bacon in the fridge where I can just reach in and grab some, or a deviled egg.
Right.
And if I'm able just to kind of eat that way throughout the day as I'm hungry, it works. But it's making us feel good while we're busy. And it's giving us the energy and the clarity and the things that we need to kind of push through and do what we need to do, versus us being super stressed out, going through a drive-through. Then you're trying to do all this stuff, but then you feel terrible and you're brain foggy and you're irritable. Like, it's just a very different experience. So I told Chris, that's why that experience alone is why I was like, hey, I just think we need to remain carnivore as much as we can.
Yeah.
And then, sure, maybe we go keto, go off a little bit here and there, but it's like you just go right back to doing what you were doing, because it's like I can't afford not to feel this good.
Yeah.
Basically.
I think this is a really interesting thing that you're having this experience, because I think a lot of people have this experience. This is reported online in YouTube communities everywhere, where you come to carnivore for the weight loss or the anti-inflammatory benefits or something, right?
Sure.
There's something that you come for, and then you end up experiencing this mental clarity and this emotional stability and this focus and this energy that you have, and you don't want to lose it. And so that's why people stay. In fact, I know there was someone, Wonder Writer, I think it was, who commented on last week's health vlog, maybe, or it was maybe another one of my videos. They commented, because I think they're doing this with you.
Oh, okay,
and they commented and they said, I have this amazing mental clarity. I'm starting to experience what I would describe as pure contentment. And they said, I'm sold, now I get it. And then I think that's a really great way to describe it, is contentment.
Yes.
In a way that I have not experienced with anything else. It's not about like happy and sad, because that's emotions and they go up and down. It's not about stupid amounts of weight loss, although I love the weight loss that I've had as a result of this, and that's great. Weight is just a symptom of a different problem. Weight itself is not the problem. Weight is the symptom because of another problem. I'm less focused on the weight and I'm more focused on the overall health and things that come with it. And when you feel great and you have mental clarity and you have focus and you have energy, the weight will come off in time.
Yeah.
And these other things getting better, like you just enjoy your life. You're content. in everything that you have. And yeah, you can take the steps to work towards more and better, improving your life and having the energy and the focus and just the stability and the emotional fortitude to be able to stand up against the world when it, gives you difficult things, and you can constantly move forward and improve, but you are content with where you are, which gives you then the ability to chase where you want to be.
I totally agree with everything you said, but did I basically just hear you say that if you eat your meat, you'll love your life? That's what I just heard.
That's it.
That's what I just. No, but there's truth in that.
There is, and that's exactly why when I started this YouTube channel, we're musicians, we do branding for everything, and I was like, I got to have a tagline, because what would it be without a tagline? I was thinking about it as I was starting the YouTube channel, and I was like, what it really all comes down to for me, as someone who had done carnivore before, went off and then came back because of what I was missing and what I was realizing was unhealthy again. I came back to it, and I already knew what to expect. I knew what was going to happen. And when I was trying to create the channel and I was trying to build all this stuff together to make Chris Cooking Nashville a thing, a reality, the only way that I could think to sum all of that up was eat your meat, love your life.
Yeah.
And that's where the whole thing came from. And that's what the core benefit has been for me all along.
Yeah. I think to anyone watching, like whether you're doing this, with us this month as a challenge, or maybe you're new to the channel or new to the idea of carnivore and don't even know like what that is, and you're kind of considering doing it, I would, at this point, week 3, I'm not even done with my whole month yet. I would honestly just really strongly encourage you to honestly just give it a shot. What's the worst thing at this point? But especially if you're someone, that deals with things like depression and anxiety and fatigue and, mental illness and a lot of that stuff, I think it can just really help you live your best life to the fullest, on top of losing weight and detoxing. And I think contentment is actually a really, really great word. Like, it's not like it's a miracle cure-all pill, but you're very content. You're very happy with where you're at. You're looking at the world in a different perspective, and you just have a clarity that just can't be matched. So I think that is really my big thing for week 3. I did have one other thing I wanted to talk about when you want to start doing a diet. And this was said so many times to us being with you on carnivore. And then when I started to do it, and truthfully, I had this thought too quite a bit when Chris came to me for the very first time and said that he wanted to do carnivore. That question is, can you afford to do it? I think people think of steaks and prime rib and they think of all this stuff, and it's like, well, how can I afford? How do I afford
$25 a pound ribeyes for 3 meals a day, every single day? Like that's what people are imagining.
And like I said, no judgment, because because we were on keto, basically, you and I both were. And then Chris came to me, and it was like right before our wedding, and he wanted to lose a little bit of extra weight.
Yeah, I think it was like a couple of months before the wedding.
Yeah. You wanted to lose a little bit of extra weight for the wedding photos. And so he's like, hey, I want to try carnivore. And at the time, we did not have a lot of money, like at all. And so I was like,
we're not rich now, but at that point
we had no money.
We were just trying to keep it afloat.
No, and of course paying for a wedding, there was no money. So, but I wanted to be very, very supportive of him, and so I was like, okay, I will figure it out financially. We'll figure it out. But if he really feels like he needs to do this, go for it. So you did it, and then I did my keto thing. Basically, the answer, if you're watching and if you're just like, well, can I afford to do it? I'm going to give you some facts, because how it works in our household is Chris does clearly most of the cooking. I mean, he's just so good in the kitchen. He loves being in the kitchen. Feeding people is how he shows love. So he does most of the grocery shopping and the cooking and stuff like that. And sometimes I'll jump in and help if need be, but we're a team. But then I handle like all of like the cleaning of the house and the laundry and paying bills and budgeting and all that. So
the house stuff while I'm at work during the day.
Yeah. So we split up, but we're a team and everything. We do our thing. So I told Chris, I was like, the first time he went carnivore, I literally was like, how are we going to afford this?
Right. We had no money.
And I actually didn't see too much change in the grocery bill. So I was like, oh, okay, whatever.
And
so
I was eating a lot of food.
You were eating a lot of food. Well, and it was your first time, and you had a lot going on.
I was still really dealing with food addiction and binge eating stuff and all that back then, really bad.
Yeah. So I didn't notice like a huge change though in the grocery bill then, because I think you were still eating a lot. Like you were so new. Like you were not where you are today.
Right.
You were working on some things in yourself, which is great.
We were also buying all of the cheapest things we could possibly buy that were still technically keto at that point. Oh,
yeah, totally.
Because we had nothing.
Yeah.
At that point.
Totally.
Just nothing.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Well, then when you did your 365 and you were doing carnivore for a whole year, no cheats.
Second time around.
A
little bit more stable.
Yep. Baby steps to greatness.
Yep.
And then I was doing keto, and so I remember you would make like meat and then a veggie, and we've done that for well over a year, I feel like, at this point. I mean, like, we've done that for a long time.
I started my carnivore, my 365-day carnivore journey. I started, I think it was in January last year. So we basically, up until this month, had been doing that. So I mean, it was like a year and 2-3 months.
Yeah.
Something like that.
So when we decided, because, you know, we had planned that in the month of April, I was going to try carnivore for a while, and we planned it, and we were like, okay, cool. Like, let's do that. Being the person in charge of like the budgeting and like the money, I actually started putting aside extra money in case it was like, well, if you and I are both going to eat steaks every night for dinner and blah, 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 blah.
We're going to need an extra $100 a week on our grocery budget just to afford the steaks.
That's what I thought. That's genuinely what I thought. So I was like, okay, you know, like I'll figure it out financially. Here's the kicker. The other day I sat down and I was paying bills, and I actually ended up sitting down and like redoing our budget, and I was like doing a bunch of stuff or whatever. So with Chris and I, we're not even done with the month, but with him and I basically both eating carnivore this month, we actually spent just about $200 less than what we typically would in groceries.
Yeah.
And that blew my mind. I ran those numbers 3 or 4 different times. So I told him that, and we had a really good discussion. And so we thought we would just kind of touch on this though and share it, because I think it's very easy to make an excuse when it's like, should I do carnivore? Well, here's a list of reasons that people are basically going to give you to tell you not to. And maybe that's just because they don't want to see you succeed. Maybe it's narcissistic behavior. Maybe you tell yourself some of these things. So
maybe it's actually legitimately concerned just from a place of ignorance.
Right. So we've talked about like the health issues, the losing of the weight, the detoxing, the good. We've talked about the good, the bad, the ugly. This, though, I thought would be a great thing to address in this health vlog, because this is the first time with both of us doing it. Right. I actually have like proof that our grocery bill was less. Yeah. And I'm like, how? Like, how did that happen? But we basically got to talking about like, why would that be? And I think one, because on carnivore, you know, if you're on a standard American diet, let's start there. You have breakfast, you have coffee, you have lunch, you have an afternoon snack, you have dinner, you have a snack. Gosh,
dessert or late night snacks or whatever.
Maybe you have all of those throughout the day. That's exhausting. That's a lot of food to eat. But when you're eating purely carbs and sugar, it just goes through you.
Right.
Right? And so it's like you're constantly eating. You're constantly putting that in your body.
Yeah.
If you're on keto, I actually think it may be kind of easy to overeat, just in my personal experience. And I think I maybe was overeating a bit, because Chris would make, you know, like say like a meat and a veggie for me. But then it's like,
I'd make like a half-pound burger patty for her.
Yep.
And 2 half-pound burger patties for me.
Yep.
And then I might have a couple of eggs to go with mine.
Right.
And maybe she would have eggs, maybe she wouldn't. But then I would make like a veggie for her. And when I make a veggie for her, I'm talking like a whole pack of asparagus or a whole pan of like zucchini and onions or something like that.
But I was eating then, I mean, why it was a lot of meat, it was also very heavy on the veggies. And so it's
sometimes you wouldn't finish the meat too.
Yeah, because I love veggies.
Yeah, you would mostly eat the veggies first, and then the meat. There would be like half of the meat. A lot of times would go into the fridge. The
other thing though is, while you were doing carnivore, you basically were only eating at this point only 1 meal a day.
Yeah.
So all you were eating was like the 1 hamburger and like, you know, the pound of hamburger patty or whatever, and the eggs. Well, I was eating whatever you made for dinner, the veggies and the meat, and then maybe I'd have, you know, like salary. Then maybe I have a pickle. Then maybe I have some cheese. And maybe I would have breakfast. I'd have maybe a lunch and sometimes maybe a dinner. So I was still eating at least 2 times a day, sometimes maybe 3. So you start adding up though, how much does a couple heads of broccoli cost, right? How much does asparagus cost? How much does pickles cost? How much is that cheese? How much is this? How much is that? You start adding that stuff up, and then the fact that you would eat that a couple times a day, I think it actually evens out. This month we've eaten things like salmon, Cornish game hens. We've eaten some of the less expensive stuff too, like bacon and whatnot. But
we're not eating just like chicken thighs and the cheapest ground beef that exists and eggs, and that's it. Like, I work hard. Occasionally we like to have something like salmon. Yeah. And we spend a little bit of extra money, not that much because I don't make that much extra, but we'll spend a little bit more to have like salmon or something once a week, or maybe we'll go get steaks when they throw them on sale, and it's not super expensive, but it's a little bit more than maybe like ground beef of course would be. And we'll do that occasionally and have a few nicer things in a month. Yeah. And then there's all the recipes, of course, that I make, which I'm buying more specialized ingredients for all those sorts of things.
Those clearly cost a bit more money. But if you're wondering if you can afford to go on carnivore and if you're concerned about it, I'm just saying we have 2 people in our household that are eating a carnivore diet. And basically, because of being so satiated, we're eating less. Both of us are. We're fuller and happier than we've ever been, and we're not eating 2 to 3 times a day. So even if we are having some nicer, meats some nights, and some nights maybe it's something less expensive, whatever the case may be, we still saved money this month by you and I both doing carnivore.
Yeah. A lot of times when you were doing the keto thing, she would eat whatever the meat was that was left over from her meal the night before, or she would make eggs, or she would have something like that. And then she would have the veggies, and then she would have cheese, and there would be like celery and, my butter mayo ranch or, other kinds of things like that. And so she would have all of that. And then by the time I'd get home from work, she would be snacking on one of those things. Like, she would be hungry, and so she'd be having some more veggies of some kind or some more cheese or something. And then I would make dinner, and then we would have, stuff for dinner, and then we'd be in bed, and she'd want to snack at night and, that kind of thing. If it was a day where she was going into the studio while I was at work to do like vocals or something like that, it's like, well, we're going to stop, at Starbucks on the way through, go through the drive-through. And even if you get like the sugar-free syrups, or you get like the fancy coffees and that kind of stuff, I mean, those things are like $7, $8, $9 a drink.
Oh, so that was the other thing too, which is actually a great example. So when I was on keto, I would do, like macchiatos and stuff, and we do like sugar-free syrups, and I wouldn't have them all the time, but it was like, okay.
Every now and then she would go through the drive-through at Starbucks.
Yeah, so that's like $7 for just like a medium-sized basic coffee, right? And it really doesn't matter like what you order, it's like whatever. So with carnivore, one of the first things I say, because I have to have my coffee. Like, it's just in everyone's well-being that I have my coffee.
That's why we do coffee plus carnivore and some spices.
Yes. Because
plus coffee.
I've been off of the coffee before for 30 days. We went off. I did it. I went off coffee.
Yep. We did 30 days no coffee, and both of us hated it.
Hated it, and
I didn't feel any better.
No.
We both really enjoy coffee.
Yeah, absolutely. But back before, when I was doing keto, we'd go through and spend like $7 on a coffee. And so one of the first things I asked Chris when I was going carnivore, I was like, hey, like, what should I what can I order that's carnivore, that's a coffee? Like, how does this work? You know what I mean? Like, what's the lowest carb thing here? How do you do that?
There is no carnivore coffee, but what's the closest thing to a carnivore diet coffee? Like basically, what is it you get when you go through the drive-through? Because she's never really paid that much attention to my order.
Nope.
When we go through a place and I'm getting coffee of some kind.
Yeah. So I've actually tried a couple different things there, but all of the coffees that Chris was telling me, here's what I would get and here's how you order it. They were literally, instead of $7, they're $2. So even if I want to treat myself and I feel like, I really need a coffee, or, I really need something. Yeah. Well, by doing a carnivore diet, I'm not spending $7 on the coffee I would usually get. I'm spending $2. That's a big difference.
It is.
And then you go to the grocery store and you're not buying fresh veggies for every night or frozen veggies. You're not buying the cheese and the different things. You're not doing berries and cream for a special dessert. You're not doing this.
Right.
It's like, no, you're just eating meat.
I think when you cut out the veggies, you cut out like maybe berries on the occasional dessert thing. You cut out the excess expense of the fancier coffees.
Yeah.
You cut out the snacks. You cut out, you know, all of the extra stuff that comes from eating 3 meals a day plus snacks, like all that kind of stuff. All of that put together every single day starts to add up, and it's like it's actually like we could probably eat steak every day for the same price that we were, or by eating, because we don't want to eat steak every day. We're not really into eating steak every single day. If you are, great. We're not. If you did that though, you could totally do it. But by not doing that and having things like, I mean, we like things like chicken thighs and chicken drumsticks and you know, beef patties and all that, and eggs and bacon and that kind of stuff. And so we do all that. And I think that actually ends up adding up to a pretty significant savings comparatively, because you cannot eat that much of that stuff to make it more expensive. You just can't. Maybe you can for the first week.
Right.
But eventually your hormones kick in for satiation and you're like, I can't eat that much.
I think we're trying to be clearly as open and honest with people, you know, as possible. And whether you're trying it for the first time and maybe that gives you ideas on what to eat, what to do, maybe check your finances, however you want to do it. But I just was like thinking about that, and I'm like, man, when you said you were doing carnivore, that was my thought, is how are we going to be able to afford this? And I get why people think that, but I think that information is good to know, because it's like, if you're like, man, money's really tight, which I mean, it is for a lot of people. I know the economy isn't the greatest right now.
Yeah.
So it's like, you know, if you're struggling and trying to figure out, you know, you're struggling with your health, and it's like, how do I eat right and how do I do whatever? Just saying, like, according to the numbers and what we've realized, we actually are saving money.
Yep.
And that might actually be the case with you, depending on how you'd like to eat and run your budget. And again, I would just encourage you to just try the carnivore diet and give it a shot.
A lot of times I eat 1 meal a day, and I think you'll probably eventually get to a point where a lot of times you will too. I mean, you actually have a couple of times.
I was going to say, I have already a couple times,
but it gets to where it's more and more consistent. But even when I'm not eating 1 meal a day, lunch for me costs anywhere from $2 to maybe $4 to $5, depending on what I'm having. It's usually like $1 or $2, or maybe up to $3 or $4 for me to have lunch.
And that's actually the great thing, though, is like, we by no means are starving ourselves on this diet. No. I've never been fuller and more satiated and like whatever. and on keto, that's why I'm saying, I think on keto, maybe it is just easier to keep snacking on things, because like, oh, there's no carbs in this, I'll just keep eating. So maybe that is harder to break a food addiction or stuff like that. And you do find yourself eating more throughout the day because you are not as satiated, because maybe even if you're doing meat heavy keto. So yeah. And then God bless our standard American diet friends. Like, you know, I mean, dude, you're just having so much carbs and sugar. There's nothing satiating you. You
spike your insulin, and then it drops, and then you get massive hunger, and then you eat stuff that spikes it, and then it crashes, and you're tired, and you need massive hunger, and then you need coffee to get through the day. I mean, it's just an up and down, and I was there.
Yeah, which is why we both were when we were on the standard American diet. That's also why I would drink a bunch of coffee and then energy drinks during the day to get myself through, to get through those crashes and those ups and downs. And then at night, I'd have a glass of wine.
I love my wife so much. When we first started dating, she would drink an entire pot of coffee. And then she would take 1, if not 2, Red Bulls. Or some other kind of like Rockstar energy drink or something with her to work. And she would drink those during the day, like in the morning and then during the day. I mean, she was dosing herself with massive amounts of caffeine and sugar. And then she would come home, and the first thing she'd do when she got home from work is like, I need wine, I need a wine cooler, I need a beer, I need something.
Well, yeah, and at the time,
on top of all the food we were eating.
At the time, though, I didn't understand any of this or what was going on. I simply knew that I need to do 20,000 things, so I need to get through. And then when I come home, I'm going to be so beat that I'm just going to grab a drink and then pass out. And it's like I didn't understand, and that's the thing. I don't think a lot of people do. But this is also why it's like, okay, well, I've done the standard American diet, and then I've done keto and I've quit drinking and I've done all this stuff. Great. And then I stalled. So it's like, okay, so what's the next step? Because I'm still not where I want to be. So how do we push it? Okay, try doing carnivore for a month. Let's just see what happens.
Yeah.
And now I'm here and I'm experiencing the clarity and all this stuff. And then I'm realizing like, wait, we could actually save a little bit of money. So I think another great example we were talking about too is like going back to like the grocery costs and stuff is our dog. Mel was on a really high-end brand of just dog kibble for the first few years of her life before we really knew anything. And then when we started to clean up our diet and started to do keto together, I went down a rabbit hole of what is actually in dog kibble and how is it made. And that's a whole video in itself. But basically, it is cooked at such a high temperature that there is no nutrients. It's just cooked so high and it's just this dry, crusty sawdust kibble. And we were paying, like, Mel's a big dog, so we were paying well over $100, for a bag of dog food. And she started to gain weight, and she was having health problems, and we just,
no energy. You could tell she was irritable.
Yeah, she'd get like grumpy, and it was
just grumbling no matter what you did.
And she's always just been like the mellowest, sweetest dog. So when we say she's grumpy, it's like you could tell though something was bothering her. And she kept having stomach issues and problems, and it was always a mess. So we actually started, and it took us years. But we actually started making her
about
food.
2.5, almost 3 years, about 2.5 years to really iron it out. I created a dog food recipe for her. And we kind of modified it, and we had to start her off slow. Like at first it was a lot of rice because she was eating so much junk that her stomach could not tolerate all of this other stuff. So there was a lot of rice in it. And we were making it with meat and veggies and that kind of stuff. And then we kind of weaned her slowly off of the rice. And like I said, it took us like 2.5 years.
To get her to where we could
get her where we could do like meat and a few veggies. That seems to work really well for her stomach.
But over the course of like that time, as we were like doing this, she got more energy. She lost weight. Every 6 months we'd take her to a vet, and the vet would just be so like amazed at like what a different dog she was, and her blood work and how it just kept getting better and better.
They do blood work on her, a whole blood panel for dogs every 6 months, and the vet has commented on several different occasions it is the most pristine blood work in any dog she's ever seen.
We've done that for a couple of years with Mel, and she's, just like a totally different dog, and it's just super. She's going to be 5 here in a couple of weeks, and
she acts like a puppy.
She is. She's just a big puppy, and she's just so much more calm and just mellow, and just she's such a good girl. That was one thing we talked about though. Is I was like, hey, if we start making like dog food, is that more money? And in the same situation, we actually found that if we fed Mel and made her own food for, we made her food for her, that we actually saved quite a bit of money.
It was like 30 or 40% is something we saved. Because it was about $100 a month for her fancy dog kibble. And I think it's anywhere from 50 to 75 a month for, depending on grocery store prices for what we do. We get her like turkey and chicken, like ground turkey and chicken. We get her chicken livers and chicken gizzards, and sometimes beef liver, and those kinds of things. And I think it
comes
out.
A couple eggs and stuff like that.
Yep, we put in eggs, and sometimes we'll put in a little bit of fish of some kind, and different things, and some frozen veggies, just a few, because that seems to be really good for her stomach for whatever reason.
She does well on it.
And if we take that out, she does not do as well, and she has some stomach issues. But with that little bit of fiber in there, it just, for whatever reason, for her, it just seems to settle her out, and costs us anywhere from $50 to $75 a month to feed her.
Yeah, and we saved a lot of money in vet bills. That's the thing. So I'm noticing it in our own budget, and us both doing carnivore. I noticed it with the dog and us making her food, and her eating way better and cleaner. So I just think that that's a great thing though, to kind of demyth, if you will, where it's like, hey, we've ran the numbers, we've done it all these different ways, and
we're saving money
for sure. We're definitely saving money. And that's the thing, is even if it costs though a little bit more, I would still be okay with it, because it's like, but if you feel this good, and if you're able to do all these things and perform better, and like, go about life with this, like, just content, calmness, it's like, I don't know if you can really put a price on that. But the thing is, it's like, wait, I can feel this good, and we're going to save a little bit of money.
It's amazing.
And then you start to think about things like the doctor bills you're saving, and the dentist, and
medications you won't need when you get off of those things as your health improves. I know a lot of people report that.
Oh, medications, or even just like the money you're going to save going through Starbucks, you know, by not getting, you know, some sugary, syrupy coffee.
Yeah.
I mean, think about things like energy drinks and all. I mean, think about the things that we consume so much, and it's like all that kind of goes away, and it's
sodas, the candy bars, the snacks, just everything.
All that kind of stuff goes away. All of it. So I think that's just a great thing though to talk about, and hopefully that answers questions and encourages people to actually give this a try, to try the carnivore diet for, you know, whatever amount of time they can, and just see what happens.
Absolutely. But we're not doctors and we can't give you any kind of medical advice, but what I can tell you is that if you're in a position where doing something like this for 30 days is life-threatening, you probably shouldn't be watching YouTube videos. You should probably be in a hospital somewhere. Otherwise, I think probably just about anybody, you know, consult your physician, but I think just about anybody with their physician's permission should be able to do a carnivore diet for 30, 60, or 90 days, whatever you think you can do, and just see.
Yeah.
It's not, I mean, it's not going to kill anybody to do something. Like, even if you decided like, nah, I don't want to do this anymore, it's not for me. As long as there's not some medical reason that it's a danger for you, like, it's not going to kill you to do it, you know?
Well, I think the other thing is you can sit and watch all the YouTube videos and gather the information, which is smart because that does help you to understand things and line you up to succeed.
Right.
But at a certain point, you need to do it or not.
Yeah.
And the only way you're going to know if it works for you or not is to try it. So, I mean, if there are any other questions people have or concerns of like, man, I don't know, like I want to do carnivore, but I don't know if I can afford it and whatever, I would encourage people just to drop those questions down below and maybe we can address them in the next health vlog.
Yep.
Because
absolutely, we're
not going to lie to you and tell you something that's not true. I didn't even realize that we were saving money until I ran the numbers in the budget and I was like, wait, wait. Man, I know from experience that I thought this when you told me, you know, that you wanted to go carnivore. And that's why I was like, we should talk about this because it doesn't matter how supportive or non-supportive your spouse is. Luckily, I was supportive in that time, but it was just like, man, it is like, that's a great thing to know though.
Absolutely.
So knowledge is power.
Absolutely.
But yeah, you just got to try it.
Yep.
Yeah.
Yep. You have any other thoughts?
Yeah, I just really appreciate the great community that we have here. We have so many wonderful, kind, just lovely people in this group. I love reading everyone's comments. I love you guys for loving Chris the way that you have and making his recipes. And
I love you guys for loving her.
We just appreciate y'all just being here and being so kind and being so supportive, and hope that we're able to help and that you found this video helpful.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, there we go. That's kind of the end of week 3. Put on any of those questions you guys have in the comments down below. If Carl is watching and he wants to know why we're still fat, it's because we're still a work in progress. So, but hey, Carl, at least I've got hair, Carl.
Oh.
If you guys want to know who we're throwing shade at, go troll the comment section. I'm sure you'll find him somewhere on one of the videos. Anyway, thank you guys for watching. I can't imagine what we would be doing here if we didn't have all of you supporting us, and it just means so much to be able to do these videos and share with you our journey. And I'm very, very excited that Ash has started to experience some of those amazing benefits, especially the mental clarity and the energy and the focus that come from this. It's something really special that carnivore seems to do for so many people. And I was really hoping that she would get to experience this and understand why I am so just in love with what carnivore can do for you with that. And I think she has experienced it in a way that is very, very telling, the fact that she just wants to continue doing this. So I think that's all we've got for you guys. Thank you so much for watching. All of my links are going to be down below, along with the video for that egg bite recipe that we were talking about, in case you guys are interested in that. Leave us questions in the comments. Let us know you're here. Let us know if you guys are doing your own carnivore challenge or keto challenge or whatever you're doing to join us this month. Let us know how it's going down below. We'd love to hear that. And we'll see what week 4 holds, and then talk with you guys about plans going forward. So thank you so much for all that you guys do. We really appreciate you being here. This is Chris Cooking Nashville, my lovely wife, Miss Ash Taylor. Guys, make sure to eat your meat, love your life, and we're gonna see you here in the kitchen or maybe at our kitchen table for more health vlogs and the next recipe. It's wonderful.
Was that good?
That was good. You're wonderful.
No.